Well, actually, potentially 2 Senate bills. I'm not sure about the second bill, but I think we probably need Senator Kagan here for that second bill, I think. But in any event, as far as the House list, the first bill we're going to take up is Senate Bill 158. But the House list is essentially our bills. Correct me if I'm wrong, committee counsel, but these are bills that were cross-filed, but that the House, made amendments, had made some amendments to our bills, and therefore I think are worthy of us discussing what they did on the cross-file bills that we've already passed out to see if we want to be different. Do we want to be the same? I think that's a good place to start. A lot of the bills, are cross-files, so they're going to be exactly, but I think this is a good time to spend time working through things that they have made some changes on bills that we've sent out already, cross-file bills. So that's what that list is for, and we'll just work through and decide where we want to be aligned or not aligned. As far as the Senate bills, we have 2 potential bills, but I think 158 will be rather simple, and we'll start with that topic with April to describe the bill and the amendments that we've put on the bill as for everybody's consideration.
Okay. Senate Bill 158, pesticide registration, PFAS testing requirements. As introduced, this bill would prohibit the Secretary of Agriculture from registering a pesticide for use against mosquitoes in the state beginning January 1st, 2024, or any pesticide for use in the state beginning January 1st, 2026, unless the pesticide passed specified PFAS testing. Just as a little bit of context, there has been a lot of back and forth with the Department of Agriculture, EPA, lots of different scientists about the availability of testing. And the Department of Agriculture feels very strongly that there is currently no certified test method for PFAS in pesticides, which would make it basically very difficult or impossible to enforce a prohibition at this point. So there are amendments in your bill packet. These are being offered by the chair. These amendments would strike the bill and would substitute a study requiring the Department of Agriculture, in consultation with the Department of the Environment, the Department of Health, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to study the use of PFAS in pesticides in the state. Study must include an analysis of the health and environmental impacts of PFAS and pesticides in the state, the identification of testing methods capable of testing for PFAS in pesticides, and an examination of characteristics that distinguish testing methods for PFAS that are validated for drinking water from testing methods that are validated for pesticides, a status update on federal efforts to certify a method for testing for PFAS and pesticides, and a status update on state and federal efforts to regulate or ban the use of pesticides containing PFAS. Those results and recommendations and findings would be due to the to this committee and the governor, as well as the House Health and Government Operations Committee on or before November 1st, 2023.
Okay, look, ideally, it would be, the EPA has the authority by regulation to get involved and have a national response to this important topic. The only other state that's attempted to do anything has been Maine, which was a much more modest version of the bill, but they already have ran into some issues. So when you look at the national landscape, this issue of testing, it's very difficult to move forward in a way that the bill was drafted without there being some consensus as to whether or not there is appropriate valid testing to do what the bill as introduced sought to do. So I think this highlights that this is an important subject, but with the feedback from our Ag Secretary in consultation with these other entities, we will get a report back, and I think we could be the model for the country with that report, but that's, I think, the vision. And, with that said, open to discussion, feedback. Senator Lewis-Young.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm very much aware from the hearing of the complexity of test and controversy over testing accuracy, but I'm glad that we are taking a pioneer step forward in at least studying the issue. And I'm glad to see this cooperative effort, and in particular, I'm glad that the Maryland Department of Health will be a partner in it. So thank you.
Should know, we do have Secretary Addicks here in the audience. He's available if anybody want to put some questions on the table for him. But again, this is a serious matter. He's here. The advocates think it's important. This committee thinks it's important. I think we have an opportunity, but we want to do it right. And I think this report would be a good first step. But again, further discussion, questions for for April or for Secretary Addicks. Yes, Senator Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, does the Department of Health and the Department of Ag, do they agree that this is the right way to go?
Mr. Secretary, would you agree this is the way to go? I believe the answer is yes. We close consultation on this with the Secretary and the other agencies.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And for the record, Kevin Addicks with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. Senator, thanks for the question. This is something we're going to do anyway.
So then do you need the bill or?
In terms of the bill as drafted, I mean, we will be having these discussions. We've already started these discussions with the various agencies to figure out what the path forward is. We've been in consultation weekly with the EPA. So this is, our concern about PFAS is real, not just in agricultural products, but in the environment in general, in consumer products and the environment. So we're going to do our part, whether this bill moves forward or not.
Well, just to push back a little bit here,
Yeah.
I think it's important we put this. This is the committee saying we want you to do it, and we also want you to do it in consultation, as Senator Lewis Young said, with these other
Yes.
state agencies. I will also just add that in the past, I think some of the advocates did not necessarily, I'll just be on the record, necessarily trust the ag departments, your predecessors, to do what they would say they would do. This provides quite a clear project for your interim work. And it's the committee saying we really are going to put it into a bill. So I think it's important to formalize it for a multitude of reasons. I have no doubt that Secretary Addicks would have been doing something like this, but I think it's important to codify this and put it in, it's the committee speaking to emphasize the importance in a more formal way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Can I ask one follow-up?
Sure.
So this goes back to like 2 years ago when I asked somebody, I was like, well, do we have a scientist on the committee who can help me define the definition of PFAS? Because we've defined it once in statute as it relates to firefighting foam. Mr. Secretary, do you think that it would be helpful to have the same work group clarify the definition of PFAS as it relates to pesticides?
That it's a state chemist question in terms of what's understood. Our team has a good understanding about what it means to have PFAS and what it means to want to test and what we're testing for.
Right.
With regards to pesticides, the big outstanding question, which is unsettled and there is no answer at the moment. Well, there is an answer. Is there a test? And the answer is no, there's not a test. Once we have a test, then the laws can follow and the rules and regulations can follow.
So I'll just say on the record, I had questions about the definition of PFAS when we defined it in statute 2 years ago. And I would just love to have somebody actually help us work on a definition, just to make sure that the existing statutory.
Why don't we do this?
works.
I think we should move forward with this study bill, but between now and, I don't know, Tuesday, this probably won't be on the, if you want to look, come up with some kind of floor amendment that does that.
I would just add one of these things that the study groups does to help us.
Okay, I just don't know how difficult that is to nail down, because you said you had a definition 2 years ago, and I don't, is there some I don't know enough to say, is there some standard uniform definition?
No, there isn't. That's why I
Right.
think this group should study it.
Okay. Okay, well,
I'll
I would say think about a potential floor amendment, and and I'm sure it'll be friendly if it sort of makes sense. So why don't we do that rather than hold up the bill? And
Perfect.
okay, any additional discussion on this topic? Okay, seeing none, would anybody like to move the amendments? Okay, Senator Lewis Young, is there a second? Senator Gallion, okay, all in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we've got the bill before us as amended, Senate Bill 158. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries unanimously. We're now, hold on one second. Okay, now let's go through this list of House bills. As I mentioned, these are bills, we'll just go through the list that have been amended in some form by the House of Delegates, and we're going to start with April on House Bill 32.
House Bill 32, Maryland Food System Resiliency Council. This bill establishes the existing Maryland Food System Resiliency Council in the Office of Resilience within the Department of Emergency Management. The Department of Emergency Management is required to provide staff for the council. This bill is the cross file of Senate Bill 124, which passed this committee unanimously. But there is a minor difference between the bills. So if you turn to page 4 of your voting packet, you will see that the House added one representative of the seafood industry as a member of the Maryland Food System Resiliency Council. Our Senate bill did not include that.
Okay, does anybody have an opinion about that one addition of that one member to the council?
So that is added. That is added to the list of members appointed by the Secretary of MDEM.
Okay, Senator Kagan, and what page? Yeah, let's just make sure everybody's looking the same. Where?
Page 4
Page 4
of the packet.
of the packet. Okay, okay. Page 4 of the packet, everyone.
I don't feel strongly, but my inclination is to like our version better. This seems really narrow. And everyone else has broader expertise. The school system, food security advocacy, a farmer, a food system, racial equity. It's just if we start going with seafood industry, well, what about poultry industry? And what about do we start getting into a lot of other tiny, I don't want to say tiny, these are important. The seafood industry is important. The poultry industry is important. Are there beef producers that are important? Are there crop management people? Are there pesticide people? I mean, I think we could go down a slippery slope. And so we also have lines 15 and 16, any other individual that the secretary deems appropriate. And maybe the secretary would say, hey, let's have a representative for the seafood industry. So I might suggest that we keep with the Senate version and conform this House bill to the Senate bill.
Okay.
As we pass it.
We'll continue the dialogue. Senator Washington on the idea of simply conforming the House bill to what we passed previously in the
Yes,
Senate version.
I like that, or, and I just want to ask, is a person who, so is a fisher person or, and a farmer the same? And is that, right. So.
Let's ask the farmer.
Right. Well, no, so I'm just saying, if the idea is that a part of Maryland's food system comes from water, the farmer, that is a specific expertise. So I could see that a fisher person, I'm not quite sure. So Madam Vice Chair, that would be to me, if that was the point, and I kind of see that as the point. Yeah. So, yeah.
Senator Gallion and then over to Senator Hester. Senator Gallion.
Yes, I know we don't want to start with getting too many, but to me, the farmer covers the land stuff and then having the seafood industry would cover the stuff in the water. So honestly, I would be fine just conforming with this one little change and keeping this rolling myself. But Senator Hester, I know is I think the sponsor of the Senate bill, so get her input too.
You, as the cross-file of the sponsor of the cross-file, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I would, on a personal note, I think a farmer and a representative of the fisher people of the state. I don't know if you want the whole seafood industry, but I did have a conversation with Secretary Strickland before this session because there were 2 or 3 other people who wanted to be added to this council. And the back and forth was between wasn't directly with him, it was with the legislative liaison. She relayed to me, the secretary of MDM had the authority to add people to the council. I think there should be. I think there are groups that are not represented here that should be represented here, besides potentially the Fisher person. So I guess I would be tempted to hold off. When we expanded the bill this year, it only covers catfish. Like, wait, sorry, that's a different bill. Sorry, I got too many different bills. Strike that last thing. Yeah, it's invasive.
Okay, so what was your bottom line as the sponsor of the crossfile? What was your input and before we take any kind of a vote?
Yeah,
on
so
it?
I guess I would prefer to conform it to the Senate and
Yeah.
keep the group small for now.
Okay, Senator Carrozza, your thoughts?
I don't know if seafood industry or if it's fishing industry, which is, but as someone who represents both farmers and representatives in the fishing industry. And if you'll note, last session, we actually went ahead with a shrimp industry as far as kind of expanding that. So I don't know if fisheries, you were basically covering the land and you're covering, the sea. And it definitely is, to me, it's a major constituency. Not only in my district, but really across the state. So whether it's a seafood industry or fishing industry or whatever, but I think that it should be included.
But we don't have consensus on this one. Maybe just to kind of get a feel, why don't we have somebody move to conform the House bill to what we have already passed? You can do that, and then we'll just go around the horn and then see where we land. And I think that's the only way I can think. Everybody's sort of weighed in. And so are you making that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, Senator Hester, you want to second that motion? Okay, we'll just go around the horn and see how that goes. And then if not, then we'll go back and discuss language potential change. So Lemuria, is that clear? A motion to conform the House bill to what has passed this committee, the cross-file version.
All right, Senator Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine. Yes. Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion. Yes. Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson. Yes. Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young. Yes. Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks. Yes. Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carrozza. No. Senator Carrozza, no. Senator Hester. Yes. Senator Hester, yes. Senator.
Explain your vote.
My vote, though, there are actually, I think we're missing at least 3 people on this council. And so I will be happy to recommend to Secretary Strickland that he considers adding somebody who represents, to ensure that the watermen or whoever it is, the appropriate group is represented.
Okay, can I also add, we're going to go around the horn. If the House sticks by their guns, then we could have a little conference committee. We can kind of solve this stuff in a conference committee. So just to be clear, that's how a lot of this time stuff ends up getting kind of resolved at that point. So I just put that out there. Senator Washington.
Idea that somehow water fishing can get dealt with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to go yes on the motion. So that motion carries to conform, but again, understanding that there's can have some more discussion before it's all said and done. Okay, let's next move to House Bill 63. I'm sorry, the bill, I apologize. Right, correct. The bill, yes, I'm sorry.
I just want to speak.
Yes.
For a second. So I support the bill and I support the Food Resiliency Council. I think 2 other people, Senator Hester, that I think are missing from this are groceries, food markets, farmers markets. I mean, I think we start a slippery slope when we have a council of 100 people, if there's everyone who's interested. So I agree with the concept of water people and fisher people and all that, but I do think it starts to get big. So it can start and it can expand later. So I moved favorable on the bill as amended.
Okay,
And I vote aye.
okay. And we had a second, and again, this would just put it in the same form as we passed this bill last time. We have Senator Kagan with a yes, and we're going to go around the horn, I guess. We need to.
Senator Kagan is a yes. Senator Gallion. Yes. Senator Watson. Yes. Senator Louis Young,
Yes.
Senator Louis Young, yes. Senator Brooks,
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza,
Yes.
Senator Carozza, yes. Senator Hester, Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington,
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. And Senator Feldman.
Yeah. Yes, the bill,
Senator Feldman, yes.
yes, HB 32 carries unanimously. We'll next go to House Bill 63. April,
House Bill 63, Certified Local Farm and Fish Program Establishment. This bill, one, renames the Certified Local Farm Enterprise Program to be the Certified Local Farm and Fish Program. Two, expands the program's purpose to include preferences for the purchase of food made from specified invasive species. Three, adds an annual reporting requirement, and four, makes conforming changes. This is the cross file of Senate Bill 386, which passed this committee unanimously. The only difference is that the House version gets the name of this committee wrong. It's technical, it's minor. They put the energy or the Education, Energy, Environment Committee. We are technically the Committee on Energy, Education, Energy, and the Environment. So we
okay,
might want to.
would somebody like to make a motion to amend so that we have the correct name of the committee? Anybody want to make that motion, Senator King?
Yeah, we're just fixing.
Correct. All in favor of correcting that technical problem? Raise your hand. That carries. I guess we still need to move the bill as amended. Is favorable. Is there a second? Senator Hester. Okay, all in favor, House Bill 63 with that technical amendment, raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Remember, I gotta we're not gonna put Lamourie in a tough spot. Okay, all opposed? That bill carries unanimously. We're gonna go to you, Alexis, on House Bill 104.
All right, so House Bill 104 is the cross-file to Senate Bill 157, Municipalities Charter Amendments Notice. I'll read through what the bill does, with the key distinction is with notice on municipal city hall buildings, essentially, and the length of time that notice should be visible for charter amendments. So this bill in general modifies notice requirements in municipalities across the state for charter amendments via ballot, and via legislative initiative. A summary is authorized to be published in a newspaper at least once and hand delivered to residences, or published in a newspaper at least once and included in a printed newspaper. The House bill that is before us does not modify the notice provisions for notice on the City Hall building in the same way that the Senate bill did. So if we look at page 7 of our reprint, the House bill keeps that notice at 4 weeks, where on the Senate version, we extended it to 40 days. And this is specific to notice, not in the newspaper, but notice posted on the main City Hall building. So 4 weeks versus 40 days is the question before us.
Okay, everybody get that? That's the issue on the table, the 4 weeks versus 40 days. House put it 4 weeks. Okay, any discussion about wanting to keep firm? Yeah. Okay, is anybody have any different point of view before we? Okay, so the motion is to conform the House bill to what we've already done in the Senate bill. All in favor of that, raise your hand. We're going to stand firm on this with the Augustine Amendment. All opposed? Okay, so bill as amended, we're again on 104 as amended. Is there a motion favorable from Senator Augustine? Right, with it, correct.
Yeah.
Senator Kagan, all in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? That carries unanimously. Next up, Alexis, House Bill 141.
All right, Senate Bill 141 is the cross-file to Senate Bill 252, State Government Commission on LGBTQIA+ Affairs alterations. This question before us hinges on the diversity factors that the commission has to incorporate for membership selection. So in general, this bill modifies the Commission on LGBTQ+ Affairs. The commission is renamed to the Commission on LGBTQIA+ Affairs. The diversity standards that the commission is required to reflect are also expanded. So in the House bill version, gender expression, ancestral diversity, diversity of origin, diversity of color, diversity of disability, religious diversity, and diversity of sex are factors that are required to be included prior to selecting members. In the version that we sent over to the House, we only added gender diversity. So we have a few additional standards or metrics that have to be included for membership. And that is on page, if I'm not mistaken, page 8. And we can see those listed out before us on page 8, lines 4 through 6. It's actually lines 5 through 6.
Okay, discussion, Senator Washington.
Leaving it, voting it as it is, and they can conform my bill to that. I already told them when I already had the hearing. I had the hearing yesterday, so.
Okay, so you say stick with the Senate?
No,
Or you
stick
are
with the House version.
the House?
Move
Okay,
favorable, yeah.
okay, we had a favorable and a second discussion about us just moving the House version. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor doing that, raise your hand. Just is it favorable? Okay, all opposed? Okay, is there opposition? So we, or, yeah,
We keep our same votes.
well, it's a separate bill. I mean, I don't know that we've gone down. I think we should have it, you know, I call it separate vote. You can vote the same way you did, but just raise your hand. Okay, so let's do it again. So there's confusion. This is on the bill. We're doing favorable because we're essentially taking the House amendment. So that it's a straight favorable vote. And so let's just redo it again. Yeah, let's do a roll call. You know, as I said, when there's some dissent or whatever, it's easier to just do the roll call. So Lamar, we're going to do a roll call. We have a favorable motion in a second
All right, Senator
on
Kagan.
this. Yeah,
Senator Kagan, Senator Kagan, yes. Senator
Correct.
Augustine, Senator Augustine,
on
yes.
House Bill 141. Okay,
Senator Gallion, Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young,
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks,
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza,
No.
Senator Carozza, no. Senator Hester,
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington,
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. And Senator Feldman.
yes, so
That's
bill
a vote,
carries
yes.
8-2. Next go to House Bill 253, April.
House Bill 253, Environment on-Farm Composting Facilities Permit Exemption. This bill requires the Maryland Department of the Environment to establish an exemption by regulation from certain permitting requirements for composting facilities that use 10,000 square feet of area or less for active on-farm food scrap composting. This is the cross file of Senate Bill 262, which passed this committee unanimously. However, there are some substantive differences between the House and Senate versions. So if you turn to page 10 of your voting packet, you'll see the House version. They have a different definition of active food scrap composting. The Senate bill defines this to mean source separated organic materials brought onto the farm and commingled material in the process of being composted. The Senate bill also clarified that only the off-site type 2 food scrap feedstocks are required to have be subject to record keeping requirements under the bill. And the Senate bill also included uncodified language that did not appear in the House bill, specifying that the bill does not affect the rules or requirements for farms and composting facilities operating under current permit exemptions. And the uncodified language in the Senate bill also required farms to provide written notice to the Department of the Environment before conducting on-farm composting without a permit in accordance with the bill.
So
Senator Gallion.
we voted this out of committee after the House did. So this is all worked out. So I would just move to conform the House bill to the Senate bill.
Any discussion? Okay, we got a motion and a second for Senator Augustine. Again, we're going to stick with the Senate version on this one. So we're going to conform the House bill to what we did already and passed out. So any okay, all in favor of doing that, raise your hand. That amendment. All opposed, that amendment carries. Now you have bill in front of you as amended, and it's in the same posture as the Senate bill that we already passed. So this is House Bill 253 with those amendments. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your. I thought we did. Apologize. Motion second. Okay, okay, motion second. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, so that bill carries unanimously. House Bill 253 carries unanimously. And again, it's in the same posture as the Senate version we passed. We're going to next go to Stacy, House Bill 292.
House Bill 292, Child Care Providers Registration and Licensing Exemptions. This is a cross file to Senate Bill 280. This bill exempts a family child care home, a large family child care home, and a child care center from state registration and licensing requirements if the entity serves only dependent children of military personnel and is located on a military base or federal property, or is certified as a child development program by the branch of the U.S. Department of Defense or the United States Coast Guard. The Department of Defense or the U.S. Coast Guard or their agents, including an installation commander of a military base on which a family child care home, large family child care home, or a child care center is located, may assume responsibility for approving or determining which children may be served by the relevant child care providers. There's one very minor differences between the Senate and the House bill, and it's one of terminology. It says the House substitutes the DoD term Child Development Center for the more generic family child care provider. I would recommend accepting the House version.
Okay, any questions for Stacy or conversation about the rationale for potentially taking the House amendments? Yes, Senator Washington.
To know, because if we were making it very clear that it's just for military, why wouldn't we use the term?
So it's nothing to do with any of the substantive provisions in the bills. They have to be certified by the DoD. The DoD term is Child Development Center. The Senate bill just said certified by the DoD
Okay.
as a family child care provider. It was a more generic term and theirs is more specific.
Okay, is there a favorable motion? We're going to take the House. Senator Washington, Senator Kagan's a second. All in favor of the favorable motion, straight up, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed. That bill carries unanimously. Next up, April, House Bill 465.
House Bill 465, Natural Resources Recreational Crabbing Gear, Individuals under the age of 16 years. This bill authorizes an individual younger than age 16 who is catching or attempting to catch crabs in the waters of the Chesapeake Bay and its tidal tributaries without a recreational crabbing license to use a collapsible trap, net ring, hand line, or dip net as described by the Department of Natural Resources in regulation. This is the cross-file of Senate Bill 102, which passed this committee unanimously. The House version of the bill specifies exemptions that already exist under current regulations. So those are the exemptions for the use of hand lines and dip nets. As it passed the Senate, we only included the things that they currently can't do under regulation. Basically, the House bill, it's clearer that we're not attempting to say you can't use the things that you currently can use. That's the only difference. They just decided to list everything.
Okay, so any motion favorable on the bill? Senator Carrozza, do you have a question on this one? Yeah, before we do anything further.
The House bill clarifies it. I noticed the sponsor, Delegate Jacobs is chair of the Watermen's Caucus, so.
Right, so I think we're saying that the House version is the
Okay.
preferred version is what we're trying to do here, so. A motion favorable on the House bill, correct, just favorable, because we think they got it right, exactly. So we had a motion from Senator Kagan, second from Senator Gallion. All in favor of House Bill 465. Again, this is the House version. Okay, opposed, that bill carries unanimously. I'm going to next go to House Bill 477. Stacy.
7, Public Senior Higher Education Institutions Reproductive Health Service Plans Requirements. This is a cross-file to Senate Bill 341. This bill requires certain public senior higher education institutions, excluding the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Studies and the University of Maryland Global Campus, in consultation with students to develop and implement a reproductive health service plan as specified to provide at the institution or refer students to a comprehensive range of reproductive health services. University of Maryland, Baltimore is authorized to provide access to over-the-counter contraception through on-campus retail establishments or vending machines in lieu of a plan. Plans must be developed by August 1, 2024 and updated annually, and the Department of Health on request must provide assistance to the institutions in developing their reproductive health services plans. These versions are substantially the same, except the House struck language regarding access to transportation as part of the plan.
Okay, so it was my cross file. We obviously passed this bill previously. I'm going to recommend that we take the House version. Some issues popped up about the transportation component. There were some issues raised about a multiple set of things. Really talk to the advocates. Everybody's okay with taking the House version, this one language dealing with access to transportation. I'm going to move favorable. Yes, Senator Gallion.
I'm looking here on HB 477 on the floor system, and I'm having a hard time finding the third reader vote.
Okay,
Pull down text, there's third reader underneath it.
That's the bill. I'm talking about the votes.
oh, votes. Okay. Sure.
It has favorable with an amendment that failed, and then nothing.
It's over to the right. Which one were you looking for? The top bar. Yeah, right there. Unofficial roll. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
I mean, that sounds about right. 9937 kind of thing. Yeah. Yes, Senator Caruso.
So the amended House version, which you are moving forward, takes out transportation?
About the language that it had access to transportation component.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
I'm recommending we take the House version. Okay, was there a motion favorable on? Okay, I'll make the motion. It was my crossfile move favorable on the House version. Is there a second? Second for Senator Washington. Okay, we're going to do a roll call. Just so everybody remembers, how they voted the last time on this one. So, Memoria, it's a favorable motion. House Bill 477. We'll go do a roll call.
All right, Senator Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion.
No.
Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson. Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young.
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carosa.
No.
Senator Carosa, no. Senator Hester. Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. And Senator Feldman.
Yes, that bill carries 8-2. Next up, we've got the governor's bill is serving every region through Vocational Exploration Act of 2023. And we're going to go to Stacy.
House Bill 546, serving every region through Vocational Exploration Act of 2023. This is cross-file to Senate Bill 551. This is the only bill on this list that has substantial differences versus minor differences. So this administration bill, as passed by the House, repeals the existing Maryland Corps program and related fund and statutorily reestablishes them within the Department of Service and Civic Innovation to provide service placements to recent high school graduates and other individuals. However, the mandated appropriation for the existing program is not reestablished. Program participants must work 30 hours a week, partner with an on-site mentor, and be provided health insurance benefits and compensation of up to $15 per hour by a participating employer. The department may provide stipends of up to $6,000 and education awards of $6,000 to participants who complete a placement and must evaluate the program as specified and adopt regulations to implement the program. There is one amendment by the chair. And the amendments aren't included in the packet because they're 39 pages long. And essentially they strike the House bill and conform it to SB 551 as amended and passed by the Senate. If you recall, what the Senate bill did is it established the Department of Service and Civic Innovation in a different part of the statute. So it repealed it and then replaced it. It transferred the Maryland Corps program to the new department along with other service-related offices and programs. Further, it incorporated the governor's provisions for the service year for young adults within the existing Maryland Corps structure, and each of them has and reorganized various parts of the Maryland Course program so that it now has two pathways. The governor's young adult service year option pathway, and then the Maryland service year option pathway. They each have their own fund. The mandated appropriation that was passed either last year or the year before only applies to the Maryland service year option fund and pathway. So it also makes various administrative changes to the Maryland Course program, including repealing the executive director position and changing the board of directors to an advisory board, and makes changes to their terms, appointments, and the duties. We also, the amended Senate version of the bill also made it an emergency bill.
Okay, Senator Washington, again, the amendment would simply make this the Senate bill that we passed, and then we'll, I guess, have further discussions down the road. But Senator Washington, anything? Yeah.
To move those amendments and would very much support those amendments. I believe it makes it a substantially better bill.
Well, no.
Right, yeah. Yes.
What, you're talking about, right,
Well,
okay.
I'm seconding the
Right.
chairman's amendments, which would,
Put us back to
Put
the
us
Senate
back to
bill,
where we
correct?
started,
Okay,
yeah.
everybody's clear about that.
so it would conform the House bill to the Senate. bill.
Correct, that's what's in front of us. Okay, any further discussion? I know we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, these are the amendment, the single amendment. This again, further discussion. Okay. All in favor of conforming the House bill to what we passed out of this committee, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we've got the bill as amended before us. Is there a motion? Senator Washington, Senator Kagan, all in favor of the bill, and back to the way it was, the way we passed it, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we've got one dissenting vote, so it's a 9-1 vote on the bill. It passes 9-1. Senator Gallion. And that brings us to final House bill in front of us, which is House Bill 696.
House Bill 696, Natural Resources Black Bass Conservation Fund Establishment. This bill establishes the Black Bass Conservation Fund in the Department of Natural Resources, consisting of voluntary monetary donations made by individuals at the time of purchasing a recreational fishing license. The fund is to be used for black bass stocking, habitat enhancement, tournaments, and conservation research. This is the cross file of Senate Bill 422, which passed this committee unanimously. The only difference is that the House amended the bill to allow interest earnings to be credited to the fund rather than to revert to the general fund. I will just add that the Department of Natural Resources prefers the House version.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to move the House version. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the moving the straight up favorable on the House version of the bill, House Bill 696, raise your hand. All opposed? That bill carries unanimously. Okay, that is the extent of our House bill work. Senator Kagan, do you want to say anything about, we have another bill on the table here. It's from Senator Kagan. I think she'd like to discuss with the committee.
Should I go over there or
You
stay
can,
here? What's your preference?
Why don't you go up to the table?
Okay. Hello, colleagues. For the record, I don't think I need to do this here, but Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, and the chair of the statewide 911 commission. I'm here with a bunch of different hats and I didn't bring my glasses. That will be helpful. Hold on one sec.
Just for everybody's edification, this will be the last matter we take up today. So this is it, okay, for the week.
Yep. Colleagues, this, we had a hearing quite a while ago about a statewide 311 system. I want to go through the quick 3-digit numbers to make sure that all of you and anyone watching are all aware of all of the array of three-digit numbers in Maryland and around the country, some around the country. So everyone knows 911 is what you call when there's a crisis. Police, fire, paramedic come from there. Last July 23rd, 988 went live. It is still not well enough known. If you are in crisis or considering suicide anywhere around the country, you dial the three digits of 988 and you will get transferred to a mental health professional who can support you, assist you. And that's critically important. And I hope you can help spread the word because too many, especially young people in crisis, aren't aware of it yet. There are two other systems that exist in Maryland. There's 211 and 311. So 211 is one statewide system, and it's run very well by the CEO, Quentin Askew, with an oversight board, and that is for human services. So if you place the 211, a call to 211, it's literally the where can I sleep tonight or where can I get food? It's an emergency access or non-emergency access to social services. And those referrals are made in your jurisdiction locally, and it works well. 311 is for access to government information. And in 6 counties in Maryland, Montgomery, Prince George's, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and St. Mary's County, there is a 311 system. And those are places where people can call. They don't know quite how to navigate the internet. They don't have Wi-Fi. Their Wi-Fi's down. They don't speak English. They're just confused and they've gotten the runaround. They don't know what else to do. They don't know where else to call. A tree fell in my driveway and I can't get out. Where can I get a vaccine or a booster? What day does my recycling get picked up? You know, on a federal holiday week, blah, blah, blah. Just basic government information. And again, in 6 counties, they can get that information. The bill that you heard quite a while ago now is to create a statewide 311. So anyone living anywhere in Maryland or visiting a tourist could call 311 and get the information they need. It's non-emergency. We've been working on this, and the question, so it's a cool new program and it's very successful. The concept is obviously how can we create an effective program at a reasonable cost of taxpayer money? And so it was suggested, and I've spent the last several weeks working on a merging of 211 and 311 to save money, provide efficiency, and provide services everywhere around the state. The 211 folks, again, I got to give a shout out, the CEO, Quentin Askew, who is probably hopefully watching and can be a resource. He and his board have been so collaborative, cooperative, and enthusiastic because 211 press 1 is now 988. And so the idea of having one portal, and as he says, no wrong door. So everything would be interconnected, regardless of which 3-digit number you called, you would get the support that you needed. So if you call 911 about the tree that fell down, that's not urgent unless it fell on a person. That's not emergency. That would be transferred seamlessly to 311. If you call 311 and you need a bed, it would be that person could help you with 211, any of that. So those 4 digits, 4 different 3-digit numbers, 911, 988, 211, and 311 would all be interconnected, interoperable, and be run at the standard that we would want. So that's the quick overview that I want to offer you. And what I'd like to do is I've spent quite a lot of time working on this merger, and I really want to give a shout out to amendment writer Lisa Cheney, who has been so thoughtful and so responsive and attentive to details. And I don't know, Mr. Chair, how much in the weeds you want to get and how much, like how many questions there are going to be, but I want to give you all enough information. I also want to give a shout out to Alexis Foxworth, who has gotten in the weeds with me on this and has been working to prepare for today as well. But this bill, as amended, not only creates a 211, 311 sort of hub or portal, it also provides for a 3-year rollout. This is not going to become law, would not become law July 1 of this year, and then boom, it's ready. It rolls out in here what happens by July 1, 2024, July 1, 2025, and then July 1, 2026. So the creation of a website, the standards for hiring and training, the identifying knowledge managers to make sure that we know what day the recycling gets picked up in Caroline County, what happens in Garrett County if there's the tree that fell down. So all of that information would be gathered, and the 211, 311 system would not go live until July 1 of 2026, giving 3 years. Something important that I haven't mentioned yet, when it was 311, it was going to be housed in MDEM, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. As we added 211, which is non-emergency social service support, it no longer made sense to house the entity in MDEM. And so it is being put into the Department of Human Services, which makes sense. I will mention also that 211 is funded for 3 years in the Maryland Department of Health. So all of the timing of a 3-year rollout works for 211, sort of winding down, wrapping up, continuing to work with the Department of Health, and then the Department of Human Services starting to ramp up and oversee. There is, speaking of oversee, there's an oversight board that has a number of cabinet secretaries, the 211 CEO, a nonprofit, 2 counties, one that has 311, one that does not, representative from MML, the Maryland Municipal League, and a number of others. So again, Mr. Chair, I don't know how deeply into the weeds, but I hope that gives you all enough to get an idea, and I'm happy to take questions.
I think it's important, Bill. Let me just though kind of cut to the chase on one thing. So when we put on the list, it was my expectation though that Budget and Tax would have signed off on this by now, which they have not as of 20 minutes ago or an hour ago. So I just put that on the table because we can't really move this to the floor without B&T signing off on this, I think is.
So Mr.
Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Chair, there is
unless
an
you have some
update.
more information.
Yeah, there
Okay.
is some more information. So again, another shout out because it takes a village sometimes to craft a big bill. Tom Elder in Fiscal Services has been working on an updated fiscal letter. Alexis was unfortunately too efficient in her work, and she sent Budget and Taxation, our friends at Budget and Taxation. She flagged this bill. Unfortunately, they are looking at the 311 version and not the merged version. And so they did not have that. Tom Elder has been working on an updated fiscal letter because there is going to be significant cost savings because 211 already exists, and we're going to be able to use that system and that infrastructure and that equipment, those workers. There's a lot of cost savings that we're going to be able to use, and we are waiting on that letter. So they acted with knowledge of the 311 bill and not of the merged 211, 311.
All I'm saying is, I think
Yes.
it's important. I wanted you to have opportunity to get this to the committee. And I guess what I'm also saying though is it's difficult though to move forward without getting all that cleared up.
Yep.
Having said that, this will be a good opportunity to ask questions, get on the table, and then when we reconvene at our next voting session, hopefully that will all be resolved and then we can actually vote it and go to the floor. But until then, I think it's premature for us to take any kind of a formal vote. Having said that, I think it's important for you to get this important topic out, field questions and the like. So Senator Gallion, Senator Augustine, and I think, again, this is a good time for us to do this as opposed to in the middle of the voting session next week or whatever.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And you kind of addressed some of this. So kind of merging the two together, it's going to be a lot less fiscal notice. I'm looking at the one before that had the 301 by itself.
Mhm.
So until we hear from B&T, that kind of answered my question. But just the one concern I brought up in the hearing, I just want to put this out because I'm generally in favor of this bill. I have a concern about, it seems like always we're always short on 911 dispatchers. And as you prioritize things, to me, I would always, no disrespect to anybody that works anywhere else, but if we're moving money around and stuff, I would want to see a priority be on making sure we have our 911 slots filled, people getting the right amount of money to go there and stay. I know in my time in the fire service, it's always been a challenge. They're always hiring. A lot of times people will go into dispatch role and go from there to a paid firefighter position somewhere. It's almost like a launching ground for some folks. You know, they go there and then they go to paid fire or paid EMS somewhere. So that's my only concern. I want to make sure the priority is 911.
So you're singing from my songbook. So thank you for that. So first off, for folks who may never have noticed, every day, in addition to my Senate pin, I wear my 911 pin about the 911 specialist, and it's a headset pin. It's the courageous women and men under the headset, and in law, they are now called, in Maryland, they're called 911 specialists. So hiring them, it's recruitment, training, and retaining. It is not a state problem. It's a county problem. It's a statewide problem, but it's a county problem. And counties need to pay more. They need to benefit more. They need to recognize more. But it is a hard job. And there are some counties, County Executive Pittman gave incentives, and there are people who are trying to do creative problem solving, but it's enormous. One of the things that is clear in this bill is that this can be either an on-ramp or an off-ramp for a 911 specialist to become a customer service specialist here doing 211 or 311. So in the case in Harford County, where there was a shooting, and the 911 specialist who had to hear the shooting of the officers and stuff, and it was traumatizing. If someone has just had a traumatizing thing, rather than quit, maybe they spend a few weeks or a few months in something that's much easier, doing 211 or 311 referrals or answering questions. Then they can go back and become a 911 specialist again. It's also for people who are not quite ready for prime time. They want to see whether they could become a 911 specialist. They can start by getting used to being under the headset, doing 211, 311, dealing with the customer, dealing with residents, solving problems, and then get the training, finish their training, and become a 911 specialist. So this is actually partnering and not competing. And frankly, I would assume that it would not pay as well. The last thing I would say is these would be state employees, these folks under the headset, because this would be a statewide system. And in Maryland, our 911 systems, as you know, are county run and county by county, county hiring, county paid, county's oversight and stuff for the 911 specialists. Is that helpful?
Competition. That's good.
Yeah, there we go.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, Senator Augustine.
Sure, thank you. So I definitely have been looking around for whenever we have what it actually is, you know what I'm saying? Like the text of it or of the bill or the proposed bill.
Do we print out the revised version? Because Alexis has the revised version.
So I can ask for that to be disseminated. When I heard back from B&T, I didn't think we were still considering this. So I can go and ask
see.
staff up front if they can
No
quickly share that.
So that was just my first thing. We're talking, but we're
Totally.
not seeing.
Yep.
211, I don't,
Yes.
they're not state employees.
They are statewide, and right now 211 is a nonprofit.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a
They're not-
501c3.
Right.
But this new entity, they would be under DHS. It's a great question. They'll be under DHS. They would be state employees. And again, in 3 years, they would morph from a 211 nonprofit under being funded largely, but not exclusively by the Department of Health. They also can get private money and all that. As Quentin Askew said, it's going to be more sustainable and all that if they're in an agency with a home and not needing to scramble for funds.
Okay, I'm just saying though, like just level setting, they're not right now. I mean,
Today, 211 is not, and
Right.
311 doesn't exist statewide. It's
well,
just
and
in 6
that's going to be
counties.
my second part, because I had this down here, is that I am curious to see what the vision for the 311 is. My county has invested, as have others, in 311, but they look very different from one jurisdiction to the next as far as what 311 means from one jurisdiction to the next.
It's fabulous. Thank you, because I did omit that. So one of the really important pieces as we've been working on this for quite a long time is that we're still authorizing counties to opt out. So the default hopefully is that I think 24 jurisdictions would be happy to have the state hire, oversee, and pay for a statewide system. But if Prince George's County says, we like our 311 system, go away, leave us alone, they can do that. They can opt out, not be a part of the 311 statewide system. And they would still have to meet the standards for training. They'd still have to meet the standards for cybersecurity. They would still have to meet this training, the performance standards for response time and all that. And Prince George's would still be paying for it.
Why would we do that?
But you probably wouldn't.
Okay.
But 3 years from now, we can take it off the county's bottom line and provide the services. The counties would still provide knowledge managers. So that will be important. The county is currently doing that in Prince George's County and the other 5. So again, gathering information on vaccines and recycling and animal control and all of the places that people can find frustrating to navigate in a local or state government. So they would still be pulling that information together, but rather than keeping it locally, they would share it with the statewide 211, 311 system.
Okay, Senator, I'm just gonna say, because I'm just in full transparency, I had in my notes here, like, I get it, I understand it, but I really thought maybe this was something that should be studied and not.
It's been studied. We already did that.
Okay, well, I have not seen that. I
Sure.
haven't seen that. I haven't seen where there's really that clear sort of plan that shows, that this makes sense. So if that already exists, I'd be happy to be able to see that. 'Cause
And I think it
surely
will
have
also, thank you. No, you're asking really thoughtful questions. And I think once you get the bill, that will also be helpful. And I did think that we had a packet with that, and that's being created now. Okay, and so we will all have access to it.
And let me just say, this is why this was a good time to flush out concerns, issues, questions. This seems like a good forum for that before we, proceed forward, aside from the fiscal note issue. Okay, Senator Crozen.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This work is really hard and it's important. And I always try to bottom line just to make sure I'm understanding it. So we all know what 911 is. That continues. That's a priority. We now have 988, which would be your mental health, suicide crisis line. Prior to 988, and in existence, we have 211, which would deal at that point prior to 988, 211 was dealing with the mental health crises, plus directing people to different services. The example that I come up is when I was visiting my life crisis center in Salisbury, they made a point to talk through what 211 was providing. So what we're doing now is because we have 988 stood up, we have 211, which a major part of its focus on the mental health and suicide is 988, but then you have where do you direct to other services combined with the non-emergency questions. So when those are combined for what under your bill, 911, we know what's going on with that. 988 is stood up. 211 is in existence for the next couple of years, run by the nonprofit. In the transition, 311 and 211 are combined under the Department of Human Services, state employees, but some type of coordination with the counties. And 988 stays under the Department of Health.
988, good. Okay, so thank you, all of that. So you were spot on, everything until the very end. 988 is not under the Department of Health. 988 is federal, and there are five centers in Maryland there where folks can get transferred. Yeah, and that's that. But everything else you said was spot on. And the key piece of this is 211 does great work. We don't want to fix it, but they have a little bit of a lighter portfolio because 988 is now providing its services. So this gives some of their bandwidth can be used. And originally, Senator, we were thinking about having 211 folks and 311 folks and kind of each stay in their lane, and you have to transfer. You called me and I'm 311 and I should transfer to you 211. It doesn't make sense. It's one big database. And regardless of what you're calling for related to 211 or 311, we're going to help you. We're going to answer your question. We're going to do it efficiently and provide you either with the answer to your question. Your recycling gets picked up on Wednesdays. 2, the referral, we're going to transfer you to the person who can help you with the tree that fell down. Or 3, we can write a ticket and someone will get back to you and all that. So those are kind of the 3 biggest outcomes.
What number is it?
Either one. So what Quentin always says is no wrong door.
Okay.
So if you call 988 and it should have been 311, it'll be transferred over quickly. And I mean, more likely it would be 311, 211, which will just be jointly referred. And we're not getting rid of any phone numbers. If
No.
people know about 211, we want them to call 211. That's great. 311, again, in counties that are used to using 311, it's somewhat known nationally. And then obviously 911, we're not going to mess with at all. And 988, we want to keep advertising and publicizing. But any one of those 4 numbers are going to be interconnected and interoperable. So we can make those transitions easily in order to provide people with the service that they need.
Okay, everybody should now have a reprint. And so, after, I'm sure Senator Kagan will entertain all kinds of questions between now and next time we convene, and we'll continue to work on the
Chair, if I
fiscal
can just
issue.
point
Sure,
out just a
absolutely.
couple of quick things. In keeping with Senator Augustine's questions and just to be clear, I might suggest, and I'm assuming that your version is the same as mine, on page 12, line 8, is that where it starts for you all? I just want to flag that. So the bill would go into effect July 1 of 2023. So page 12, line 8 is July 1, 2024. Here's what happens. You're going to have a website. You're going to have a county liaison. You're going to have hiring and training standards. So you have a year to start that up, and you're going to start, and we're going to ask our Congress members, our congressional delegation, to see if they can get federal funding, because we have been led to believe by Congressman Trone and others that there may be federal funding for this, which would be awesome. Then we have another year later. And colleagues, if someone can tell me, is the numbers the same? Page 12 now, line 20.
They have the most updated
Good.
version. which
On
should match.
or before July 1 of 2025. Then you're going to have the technology infrastructure. You're going to make sure that the digits 211, 311 are working. 311 is going to be, you're going to have the operating procedures. You're going to have written agreements between the state and the county. The Cybersecurity Council is going to set up standards that meet or exceed the national, standards. And you're going to start gathering information that we're going to need. And we're going to start developing, but not launch. We're going to start developing a marketing campaign so that people know the differences, maybe between 211, 311, 911, and 988. And again, no wrong door, but it would be great for folks to be aware of it. And then page 13, on or before July 1 of 2026. Then it launches and it goes live. On or before July 1, 2026, the statewide 211, 311 system shall be fully operational. And it's going to comply with the standards. It's going to have the technology, equipment. We're going to have the employees. It's going to be a non-emergency service. And so I just want to flag the 3-year rollout. So it starts off pretty modestly. And that's why the fiscal note and stuff, because it doesn't launch instantly, that's why another reason. And because we're using the 211 infrastructure, that we expect a significantly lower fiscal note, which is why B&T will need to, budget and taxation will need to take another look.
Okay, any additional questions for Senator Kagan? And again, I'm sure she'll be available for additional questions now that we have the reprint and everything. Okay, well, any final words, Senator Kagan, on this before we adjourn
Is there
for
anything
today?
else left out that you want to add?
Anything further, Alexis, on the whole topic? Just you want to add? Senator Hester, you had a question?
I think it would be helpful to know if like the various agencies who wrote in, like, have they seen the reprint and have they changed their position?
So I have kept MDM very closely connected, and I even added a slot on the oversight board for the secretary or the secretary's designee. And so I talked to Secretary Strickland actually day before yesterday about that. So they're fully aware. I've met with the Secretary of Human Resources and have kept him and his legislative liaison and their folks in the loop. All of those folks have the current version of this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, thank you, Senator Kagan, and we've got the reprint. This is a big piece of legislation, and we want to make sure everybody knows what's going on here. So with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your free day tomorrow, and I will see you when I see you, and enjoy.